Pele owes his reputation for being a symbol. He's a symbol of those amazing Brazilian teams who won the World Cup. He's a symbol of beautiful football, of jogo bonito. Is that to say that he was the best player ever? He was. But he's not Ronaldo.
Pele is not the greatest player of all time. The Brazilian legend has had a reputation of being the greatest, most successful player ever, and certainly the best of his generation, receiving a lot of accolades and recognition throughout the years. But after I've looked into his career and the context of many of his accomplishments, personally I've come to a conclusion that this is not the case. Does that make Pele a bad player? Of course not. He is by no means a poor player, and he has done many great things during his era and did a lot for the sport. But that does not make him deserving of the status that he has enjoyed after his retirement, often hailed as the best player the sport has ever produced. In my opinion, the answer is no. Again, this is just my opinion, and people are perfectly entitled to disagree. I feel a big reason why this opinion rose to prominence is because it's harder to judge due to lack of visual evidence we have, due to him playing at a time with very limited technology. Not only that, but this ideology has some way or another been ingrained into football culture. Therefore, a lot of people play the safe answer, claiming he is the best ever, as it has become popular opinion. It has become common practice to simply accept that Pele is the best and not question whether his legacy is fair or not to be amounted to that level of status. So in order to address the subject, we are going to tackle the career of Pele and explain why he is overrated. Let's start with this topic, as it is arguably the main reason Pele has garnered the reputation he currently has. A few months ago since this recording, Cristiano Ronaldo became the top historical goal scorer in football history, beating Joseph Baikan. Statistics were seen of several players that made up this list, and one of them was Pele, who had a record of 757 goals, more than a respectable figure which currently ranks him as the third best scorer in history. What must be highlighted is that for a long time many Brazilian sources, and even O'Reilly himself, placed this record above 1,000 goals, exactly 1,283, a big element of why he was garnered the GOAT status within popular culture. After the 1958 World Cup, the Brazilian national team and Santos FC toured the world to show their qualities. During many tours and friendlies, Pele scored 526 goals that were considered on his record. However, within the FIFA statistics they were not included, and this stirred up a lot of controversy within the footballing community. It must be remembered that the number of goals Pele scored was one of the main points in favour that always served to promote the Brazilian star to the elite of world football and as the greatest player to ever grace the sport. But the reality is that his goal scoring record is quite dubious, and it was done at a time when there was a lot less quality in the game. Pele scored most of his goals in many different competitions of subpar quality, and that obviously played a role in his success. Many of the goals on his record come from exhibitions. This is certainly very different to competition that, say, Lionel Messi has to face, and that is obviously the same with Cristiano Ronaldo, who broke that goal scoring record in a much more challenging time, with 0 exhibition matches on his record, which goes to show that there is a difference in the sport that is played today and the one that Pele thrived in. You cannot be considered the best when there are such questions over the competitions he played in. The truth is, football has changed and evolved a lot throughout the years. The standards in which players are held is a lot higher, and they are a lot more demanding than in the 60s and 70s, which is something that should be taken into account when assessing players. This is a main reason why Pele simply is not on the same level when compared to a select few modern day players. If we talk about football back in Pele's era, we are talking about a game that was less athletic, less technical, and less tactical. I mean, just look at this. This played a big role in his success because the sport was of lesser quality, way less quality, which gave him a lot of room to thrive in. He was simply in an era where the sport wasn't as much of a challenge as it is today. Pele did it at a time when players had a lot more freedom. The tacticians were not as evolved as the modern ones, and there were less technically and athletically gifted defenders. Nowadays football is greater than ever, has more money than ever, more competitive and tactical than ever. Analytics, physical conditioning, the coaching, the tactics, the pitches, the boots, millions. Maybe even billions goes into the sport, and everything is done to get the absolute best out of the players, and that is why I feel like the modern era cannot be compared to the 60s and 70s. It's like comparing a Charmander to a Charizard. The main and greatest achievement when it comes to Pele's career, which helps to place him above others such as Messi and Cruyff, is the fact that he is a World Cup champion and managed to do so on 3 different occasions, making him the only player to achieve this feat. However, it is important to understand the fact that Pele had teammates who are top class players such as Didi, Garrincha, Carlos Alberto, Robinho and Gerson. It should be noted that the Brazilian national team of the 1970s is considered to be one of the best national teams in history and one of the best teams to ever play the sport. All those players were historical references of the sport and also made an important contribution to the achievements of the World Cup for the Brazilian national team. However, they are far less remembered than Pele. You have to be a much older fan of the sport or a hardcore fanatic to remember these players, their skills and what they added to the teams they played in. In contrast, we can cite Maradona, who managed to be a world champion in 1986, in a national team where he was the clear figure and the rest of the players were a good level but not world stars. This was not the case with Brazil. Pele was surrounded by a great squad and certainly did not win the World Cup single-handedly like the Argentinian. He was helped by his teammates and was fortunate to have been born at a time where Brazil had a tremendous generation of players, which is something that is often ignored when analysing his career. I make this point because when you think of Brazil 1958 to 1970, it is very common for people to forget about the team he had and the players that helped him, pinning all the success on Pele himself. Pele did not play in Europe, where he could have been seen competing with legendary clubs such as Alfredo Di Stefano's Real Madrid, Eusebio's Benfica, Helena Herro's Inter Milan, Sir Bobby Charlton's Manchester United, Johan Cruyff's Ajax, or Franz Beckenbauer's Bayern Munich, which would have served to clear up doubts about the Brazilian's level and whether he was truly the greatest. You cannot prove yourself as the best of the game if you have never played against the best. The best players in the world proved their dominance against the best rivals in the game, and while there is no doubt that Pele was a great player, there is fair criticism that he never fully proved his worth against the European giants. Even back then, European football was still quite superior to South America, and the fact that Pele's goals and statistical achievements were all made in South America and the New York Cosmos not only puts a question mark on his legacy, but also shows a lack of ambition. If you're not playing against the most gifted footballers in the game, facing the likes of Real Madrid, Manchester United, Bayern Munich and so on, there will always be an asterisk against your career and legacy. Pele's era, misguided stats, the national team he had around him, and the fact that he never played at the true top level of club football are all valid reasons why, in my opinion, he is considered greater than he actually is. I know the time he played in is completely out of his control, but it is my opinion that he would not be the same player if he was competing at the top level of football today. This is Football Forever. Thank you for watching the video. If you like the video, please like and subscribe as it helps my channel to grow. I have more and more videos on the way for all the fans of football.